The film opens in the snowy mountain town of Kehoe, where Nels Coxman, a quiet and hard-working snowplow driver, lives a peaceful life with his wife, Grace. Their son, Kyle, works at the local airport and often visits his parents. Life seems simple and content for the family, especially when Nels is honored with the Citizen of the Year award for his dedicated service to the community. However, their happiness is short-lived. Soon after, Kyle and his friend Dante are kidnapped by a group of criminals. The kidnappers inject Kyle with a lethal dose of heroin, killing him instantly, while Dante manages to escape. Meanwhile, in Denver, a ruthless and arrogant drug lord known as Viking is seen teaching his young son, Ryan, to deal with bullies using violence. Ryan, a kind-hearted boy, refuses to obey his father's cruel advice. Back in Kehoe, Nels and Grace receive the devastating news of their son's death and are called to identify his body. The authorities claim Kyle died from a drug overdose, but Nels refuses to believe it. He knows his son wasn't a drug user.
He died of a heroin overdose. Wasn't a druggie.
Grace, overwhelmed by grief, lashes out at Nels for appearing emotionally detached. Broken and unable to cope with the loss, Nels contemplates suicide. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, Dante appears and tells him that Kyle didn't die from an overdose but was murdered. Fueled by anger and grief, Nels demands answers and learns about a man named Speedo who might know more. He tracks Speedo down at a nightclub, and after a violent interrogation, forces him to admit he was just following orders from another man named Limbo.
Huh?
Meanwhile, Viking grows suspicious when Speedo goes missing. His young son notices his father's temper and begins questioning his violent lifestyle. Nels, still on his revenge path, finds Limbo's workplace and extracts more information before killing him as well.
Stay on.
When Nels returns home, Grace confronts him about how little he truly knew about their son's life, leaving her even more distraught. In Denver, Viking's ex-wife visits him, threatening to file for full custody of Ryan. Furious, Viking tries to bribe her, but she refuses and storms off. His anger deepens when he learns about Limbo's disappearance, suspecting a rival gang might be involved. Around the same time, Nels continues his killing spree, taking out another thug named Santa, who was also part of Kyle's abduction. When he returns home, he finds Grace gone. She's left, unable to bear his coldness and obsession with revenge. Desperate for guidance, Nels visits his estranged brother Brock, a former mob enforcer, and explains everything. Brock reveals that Kyle and Dante had accidentally stolen a shipment of cocaine belonging to Viking's cartel, putting them in deadly danger. Brock warns Nels that taking on Viking is suicidal. He's too powerful and connected. While the brothers talk, Viking wrongly assumes a rival Native American gang led by White Bull is behind his men's deaths. Believing White Bull has broken their peace treaty, Viking orders the kidnapping of one of White Bull's men for interrogation. When the captive refuses to talk, Viking kills him, not realizing he just murdered White Bull's only son. Detectives Kim Dash and John Jip hear about the murder and fear it could ignite a full-scale gang war in their quiet town. Kim urges action before it's too late. Meanwhile, Brock tells Nels that Viking's real name is Trevor Calcote and suggests hiring a contract killer known as Eskimo to eliminate him. Nels meets Eskimo, pays him in advance, and sets up the hit. But Eskimo, sensing an opportunity for more money, betrays Nels by contacting Viking and offering to reveal who wants him dead. Viking agrees, and Eskimo exposes Nels' identity. At first, Viking suspects Brock due to their past history, but once he learns the truth, he kills Eskimo for his treachery. Still bent on revenge, Nels keeps tracking Viking's operation, unaware that Viking has gone to confront Brock. When they meet, Viking demands to know who has been killing his men. Realizing there's no escape and already dying of cancer, Brock takes the blame to protect his brother, claiming it's payback for an old family grudge. Satisfied, Viking kills him, unaware that Nels is still alive and planning his next move. Meanwhile, White Bull, devastated by his son's death, declares that the old truce with Viking's father is over. He vows revenge and demands a son for a son. Realizing that Eskimo failed, Nels begins watching Viking's home and discovers that his son Ryan attends an elite prep school. After Viking learns White Bull wasn't behind the attacks, he tries to mend fences by sending White Bull a gruesome peace offering, the severed head of one of his own men, Dexter. When White Bull receives it, he mocks the gesture, kills the messenger, and vows to take Viking's son instead. Around this time, Detective Kim re-examines Kyle's death, suspecting it wasn't a simple overdose. She visits Nels and shares her theory, but he dismisses her, saying nothing can bring his son back. Later, Nels goes to Ryan's school, posing as a driver sent by Viking, and picks the boy up. Although confused, Ryan cooperates. White Bull's men spot them and give chase, but Nels outsmarts them and takes Ryan to his secluded cabin. When Viking learns his son is missing, he assumes it's a kidnapping and waits for a ransom call. His ex-wife returns, accusing him of taking Ryan without permission, but Viking insists someone else has him and starts plotting his next move. Meanwhile, White Bull's men find messages on Dexter's phone leading them to Viking's hideout at a hotel. They storm the place, killing Viking's crew and escalating the gang war further. Back at Nels's cabin, Ryan and Nels bond. Ryan asks about his family, and Nels admits he had a son who's now gone. He treats the boy kindly, giving him Kyle's old room, reading him a bedtime story, and promising a ride in his snowplow the next morning. At the ski resort, White Bull's men celebrate, though White Bull remains grief-stricken and focused on vengeance. In Denver, Viking's henchmen capture a janitor who reveals it was Nels who kidnapped Ryan. Realizing his mistake, Viking sets out for Kehoe to confront him personally. Nels calls Viking and tells him to come alone if he wants his son back. Viking agrees but secretly sends his men ahead. They raid Nels's house but find it empty. He and Ryan are out driving the snowplow. During a police stop, Nels pretends Ryan is his nephew to avoid suspicion, but soon learns Viking has arrived at his home. Viking's men discover Nels's business name in a photo and head there, unaware that one of them has tipped off White Bull. As Nels prepares to ambush Viking, Ryan distracts him, allowing Viking's men to capture him. Before Viking can interrogate Nels, White Bull's crew storms the scene, triggering a massive shootout. Both sides suffer heavy casualties in the chaotic gun battle. In the end, Nels manages to trap Viking inside his car just as White Bull appears and kills him, avenging his son. With the war over, Nels quietly returns to his snowplow, resuming his solitary life. As he drives through the snow-covered mountains, White Bull climbs aboard, and the two silently head into the distance. Along the way, a stray gangster stumbles into their path and is accidentally run over by the plow, an ironic final note to the bloody chain of revenge. The film concludes with Nels driving off, the cycle of violence finally coming to an end.